are now listening to a Forward Mile Podcast Network production.
Welcome into the Vegas Squares podcast. We are joining you one day after the first round of the NFL draft, and I'm joined on the phone with Token Tony. Tony, what are your thoughts? Would you say you were surprised, or did it go about how you thought it would go, or what were your thoughts on the first round of the NFL amateur draft?
I thought it was a very interesting first round of that NFL draft. I thought there was some picks that surprised mostly everybody, and some that were to be expected because of prior picks. So,
well, let's start with the number one pick, and depending on who you ask, they either knew it was happening or they were completely caught off guard. A lot of Vegas sports books had him running up from the pack to the favorite as the hours leading up to the draft were coming to us, and he closed it as the favorite, Baker Mayfield, in a lot of books. And to a lot of people who probably aren't following the betting trends, based on what I've read and what I've seen and what people did at the draft on TV, a lot of people were surprised by this pick.
I was kind of surprised, but I was reading more into it the day, yesterday morning, the day of the first draft, and I mean, they must have really liked him and liked his style and thought he would be a good fit. Maybe give him 1 year to kind of condition behind their lead right now. So,
yeah, I mean, the thing I look at is, a lot of people, who many people would trust, a lot of pundits who people would trust had Baker maybe third or fourth overall quarterback behind Rosen, Darnold, and Allen, depending on at what point in time you're talking to somebody, because we all know about the controversial tweets that he had days leading up to the draft, which probably slid him down a little bit. The thing about it is, the Browns had 2 picks in the top 4. So realistically, my theory is that I feel like they could have had him at 4 potentially. Do you agree with that notion, or do you think that they had to take him at 1 if that's the guy they wanted?
According to your logic, if you really like him, you take him in that pick. But I think they could have easily got him at 4.
Yeah.
If they took Barkley at 1, he would still be available.
Yeah, because the question is many people believed if Darnold was there, the Giants would take him. My theory, I guess, would be it would be really hard to justify a running back at 1. And I guess they just saw that they would just rather get their guy than play the games there at that point, because they ended up getting Denzel Ward, which I don't think anybody thought that would be the 4th pick. I actually thought they'd go with Chubb, and just to solidify him with Myles Garrett, the number 1 pick last year, they went with Denzel Ward, which is not a bad pick. I mean, he's probably a pro-ready cornerback at this point. Baker's got some issues. I mean, we all know what his character, that he's on and off the field. But I think that swagger may have been what kind of drew the interest of some of these teams, including the Jets and ultimately the Browns. I thought maybe his swagger, and in the same tune, Rosen's swagger shot them up and down the draft boards. What are your thoughts?
No, I absolutely agree. I think the Browns really like Baker's swagger and all that, and I think he'd be a decent candidate for them, and be interesting to see how he develops with the team, and be interesting to watch to see if he turns out to be like a Johnny Football, or who knows, maybe even like potentially like a Drew Brees or like Tom Brady or something like that.
Well, it's crazy to think. I mean, we were talking potentially, us pundits, whoever you want to listen to, we're talking potentially the first 3 picks, or even the first 4 picks if Cleveland traded that pick being quarterbacks. I mean, they still unprecedentedly went 4 in the top 10, but it didn't quite pan out like a lot of people thought. I mean, they had 2, Baker and Darnold, went to Cleveland and the Jets respectively. But was there any pick in the top 5 that really shocked you?
Besides really Baker going first, and then the Browns then getting Ward fourth, not really. I mean, I understand what the Browns did, and they got the guy that they wanted. But in my mind, I think he was still probably available at 4.
Yeah, I mean, I think the theoretical notion with this with Dorsey is that the reason he took Baker at 1 is because I really think he liked Denzel Ward, and I don't think he would wanted to risk trading back, to 7 or not 7, but like 10 with Oakland, or trade back to 15 with Arizona, or Buffalo, as I believe was at 12 or 11 with
and
Miami.
Still have him available.
And still have Denzel. I think he liked Denzel a lot at that point. That was my thought process when they took Denzel, because I thought, okay, they'll take Baker. Saquon's gone. They'll probably trade out of 4. But they stayed and took Denzel Ward, which makes me, in my opinion, believe they really, really liked Denzel Ward. So they thought, we can't justify Denzel as the number 1 pick, but we can take him 4 and get the guy we like, Baker, who probably would still be there at 4, but we can make him the number 1 pick. I don't know. That's my theory on it.
Yeah. No, I understand, and they definitely needed a cornerback, so, I mean, that's without a question.
Yeah, most definitely.
And he's definitely the hottest one coming off this draft, so.
Yeah, plus they have, if I'm not mistaken, they have 2 of the next 3 picks tonight, so they can definitely continue to work on this roster. I'm very glad. I don't know if anybody caught. Obviously, I wrote an article for the Vegas Squares website that I said to take Josh Allen to go ahead of Bradley Chubb. That was pre all of the media tweeting and the racial tweets or whatever you want to call them. I did tweet that you should jump off that bet if you haven't already made it. Unfortunately, I was a loser in that bet because I had already made the bet, but. Hopefully, if you hadn't yet and you didn't make it, you saved a little bit of money. So kudos to you if you did. Josh Allen sliding a little bit. Buffalo, this to me doesn't seem like a match that makes sense. Buffalo is a team who made the playoffs last year, and to take the most unproven of the 4 or 5 quarterbacks didn't seem like the smartest move to me. When they traded up, I actually thought they were going Rosen.
Yeah, that would have made the most sense in my mind. Somebody with a decent head on their shoulders and all that could lead them to at least the same situation where they were in last year, instead of maybe somebody that's just going to blow up on the field. So
right, yeah. So I mean, okay. So we have the 4 quarterbacks: Baker, Darnold, Allen, and Rosen. Who do you think of those 4 in the top 10 has the quickest path to the starting job at this point?
Darnold.
You think Darnold? You think he's going to be?
Yeah.
You think he'll start week 1?
I see him about halfway through the season starting, if not sooner.
I got to think
right around week 7.
I got to think Josh Allen's already penciled in as a starter at this point. No.
Maybe. I
mean, I
don't know. It's just
what do the Bills have at this point? That's they got rid of Tyrod, who's the guy that led them to the playoffs. Nathan Peterman, we remember his. We could probably look at his tape in about 10 seconds. 6 picks.
Yeah.
They may pick up. I know they have AJ McCarron. I think Josh Allen. You draft him 7. I mean, maybe you give AJ 8 weeks. It's going to be tough. I think Josh Allen has a good clear track, and also Josh Rosen, because between Mike Glennon and Sam Bradford, I don't think there's a lot of roadblocks in the way for him.
No, you have two guys that are average at best that are both pretty injury prone. So
right. So yeah, I mean, let's slide down the draft a little bit. Obviously, there were some defensive players who were taken. You know, Roquan Smith, who was probably one of the best linebackers to come out in a while. He was taken by the Bears. Vita Vea taken by the Bucks. They traded down. They actually were slotted where the Bills actually took Allen. They traded down and picked up Vita Vea to pair with what I believe is going to be a really, really, really good front four in Jason Pierre-Paul, Vita Vea, Gerald McCoy, and Vinny Curry, the new free agent acquisition out of Philadelphia. That to me on paper sounds like a pretty dangerous front line for Tampa Bay.
yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I think that'll be definitely something to watch for this year instead of their quarterback situation right now.
Another one that to me was kind of a head scratcher was New Orleans trading to take a defensive player. I actually thought when they traded up, they were going to look at like Lamar Jackson as a replacement for Breeze, or
I was thinking exactly the same.
Or potentially an offensive lineman to protect. But taking Marcus Davenport, not that it's a bad pick, it just caught me off guard.
Kind of a shocker. Well, defense is what they need at the time, and I think Davenport's going to be a decent fit for their scheme right now. So,
yeah, I mean,
be interesting. To see.
Yeah, their defense was really good last year, and it's only gotten better with Davenport. So, I mean, you can't hate on the pick; it's a pretty good pick. Derwin James, who I'm really high on, went to the Chargers. The Chargers made a good pick there. Same with Minka Fitzpatrick going to Miami. Both teams got really good safeties there. I'm interested to see Derwin James' career. I think he's hopefully not wasted out there in Los Angeles playing at the StubHub Center. But I had to get to this one because I wanted to get your thoughts on Frank Ragnow, the center from Arkansas, who I didn't see on any kind of boards that I was looking at. I mean, he was projected, maybe a slight first-round pick, but, I mean, was this the most glaring need for Detroit at this point?
I would say it would be a priority for us, but it wasn't like our top priority in my mind. I think we could have gotten by with a second or third round center and still been all right, but I mean, maybe Patricia was on something and really liked his performance and all that, but I don't know. We'll see. It's better than a tight end, that's for sure.
Well, the projection is that he's going to play guard. So realistically, I mean, I thought there were better guards out there unless this guy, they saw, like you said, Patricia saw something that, no one else did and decided with the 20th pick to take a center and move him to guard. Because Isaiah Wynn, who is a tackle or a guard out of Georgia, the Patriots drafted him. It seems like he would have been a more logical pick to play guard if that's what your intentions were in Detroit. So,
no, I think Detroit was thinking somebody that could play guard and most likely step into that center spot if needed.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, a guy who hopefully if he stays solid, because the thing is, you don't really take interior linemen with the first pick unless they are just far and away, just at the top of the draft. Interior linemen
stand out and something that fits your scheme and all that.
So another prop bet that I had on the article that I had to sweat a little bit because I thought Calvin Ridley would go to the Dallas Cowboys at 19. I took the over on the number of Alabama players selected, and the over-under was 4. I took the over. It actually fell right on 4. I was pretty confident it was...
So push.
Yeah, but I was pretty confident at least 4 were going. There were a few wild cards that could have fell into the back half of the first round depending on how trades were made. It ultimately didn't work out for me, but I was still pretty confident that I was at least pushing at worst, and that's what happened when Calvin Ridley went 26 to the Atlanta Falcons, which if he can have any kind of mimicking career of Julio Jones, that is a 1-2 and Sanu 1-2-3 punch that the NFC South better be very fearful of.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that in my mind, I think that's probably one of the better picks of the first round of anybody based on their positioning and all that.
Yeah,
I think Ridley's definitely going to be one of the best fits for the Falcons based on their first pick.
Yeah, situationally, I mean, you're going to have Julio on one side, Sanu on the other side, and Calvin Ridley in the slot, or you can, rotate them around. That's a three-headed monster, especially with Ridley's and Sanu's salary that they can ultimately, and if Ridley, like I said, if he mimics Julio's career, if they are unable to pay Julio here soon, they may be able to let him walk if Calvin Ridley can step in and be the same guy. So that may turn out to be a really, really good safety net for them, and I liked the pick there situationally. I wasn't really high on Calvin Ridley overall as going to where like 19 where the Dallas Cowboys were, but Atlanta at 26 grabbing that guy was probably a pretty good steal for me, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
What do you think of
What's your thoughts of Sonny Michel going to the Patriots on their 31st pick?
Yeah, Sony Michel, I liked the pick. The last time they took a running back was Lawrence Maroney, and that didn't work out, and that was over 12 years ago. I actually tweeted a couple days ago where the love was for Sony Michel and Nick Chubb and why they weren't getting first-round love, and I guess maybe Bill and I were on the same page. So maybe I have my inner Belichickian thoughts. Maybe we're related. I don't know. You never know. But I like the pick. At first I didn't understand the Wynn pick because when they told me he was probably going to play guard, I thought they would grab a guy who would more, replace Solder, which he can. I mean, he's going to be a conversion, a project eventually. But I thought maybe they would try to trade up and get that guy out of UCLA. I forget his name now. Let me go back. Colton Miller. But drafting a guard, maybe with the intention of replacing Nate Solder, hopefully he can step in and do it immediately because Brady got hit a bunch last year, even with a tackle of the caliber as Nate Solder. Sony Michel basically lets me know why they let Dion Lewis go because Sony Michel is probably 5, 6, 7 years younger than Dion Lewis and can do the exact same thing. So, and he's going to be on a rookie deal. They don't have to pay him. Mm-hmm. So. Other guy I would have liked to see in New England, similar to Sony Michel, was Rashad Penny, and he was actually drafted 4 spots ahead by the Seahawks, which not a lot of people had him projected as a first-round pick, the NCAA all-time leading rusher, but he did end up going to Seattle, who has been pretty terrible at running back since Marshawn decided to hang the cleats, and then unhang him, but not with Seattle.
Yeah. I mean, the Seahawks definitely need somebody to support Russell Wilson and take a little load off of him. So I think Penny's a good pick for their position, but I think they could have done a little better. Yeah,
I mean, like you said, after the running back spot, after Saquon was a huge dip. There wasn't anybody who was overwhelmingly a first-round guaranteed talent. But, between Michel and Penny, I don't have a problem with either of those picks. He was a really good returner, but I have a hard time believing that he's going to return kicks or punts in the NFL. One, for health reasons, and two, because, kicks and punts may not even be in the NFL in a few years. But if he can duplicate his success at San Diego State, Eddie Lacy and Thomas Rawls aren't anything to write home about. They tried those thunder and lightning tactics. They need Penny to be big. They need Penny to be Marshawn Lynch big, and I think he has the ability to do it. I'm not saying he's guaranteed, but he has the ability to do it because they're falling behind fast with L.A. and San Francisco. So we'll see. I mean, Rashad Penny's got a shot. I mean, he's going to be, I would imagine, if not he'll be one of the rotation backs or the lead back. We'll see. How that all goes, but I got to imagine he's in a good spot with Seattle. Mm-hmm. And we have Lamar Jackson, who was taken 32 by the Baltimore Ravens. And what does this mean for Joe Flacco at this point?
The light is at the end of the tunnel if
you don't shape the fuck up.
Yeah,
that's the question I have.
And it's fastly approaching too.
I mean, the question I have is that they could draft Lamar Jackson, as an intention to be the starter. But I mean, if Flacco can find any of the magic he had that when he was making playoffs and ultimately won a Super Bowl, I mean, this could be a pick where I hate to say that one day after, but this could be a pick just specifically to light a fire in Flacco's ass.
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
Because, I mean, so many people said that Lamar Jackson's not a quarterback. So many people said Lamar Jackson's a franchise quarterback. So I'm willing to believe he falls somewhere in the middle. I'm sure he's a good quarterback who probably isn't a franchise quarterback, but probably isn't, hot garbage and should switch to receiver. I'd like to see Flacco take this and run. Ultimately, I don't know if maybe he's just content with, I got a Super Bowl, I got a $100 million contract, let him have it. I don't give a shit. I don't know Flacco's demeanor. I would think as a competitor that's not him, but I think Flacco's good enough to keep this guy off of him for a couple years.
Yeah, I would say like 2-3 years down the road, and maybe Jackson can kind of pick up a good habits of Flacco's.
Yeah, speaking of habits, what I saw this morning, actually, when I was driving home, Josh Rosen came out with a quote that said basically, the 9 teams before me made 9 mistakes, or they all made a mistake, and they're going to regret seeing me. What do you make of that? I mean, it's obviously cockiness. It's obviously arrogance. Do you view that as a positive or a negative? Because right now the people have spoken and they're kind of on the fence, one way or the other. Some people view it as, he's an asshole, and some people view it as he's a competitor, and I'm rooting for him. My stance right now is, I understand what he means. Maybe saying it publicly wasn't the best course of action, but I found myself kind of, after he said that, rooting for him a little bit.
No, I definitely agree with that statement. I think he's ready for preseason week 1 and just getting on the field and trying to destroy the other teams and all that. So
I mean, I look at a couple of these teams, the 49ers, the Colts, maybe to an extent the Broncos with Case Keenum. I mean, those 3, you can't say, oh, you made a mistake. I mean, they've got solidified quarterbacks. Chicago just took Trubisky last year. Indianapolis has Andrew Luck for now. I mean, I can understand saying that to Cleveland, maybe New York, the Giants, the Jets I can understand, but maybe New York with Eli, I don't know, maybe. I mean, they didn't take a quarterback ahead of you, so it wasn't like they said, this quarterback's better than you. They decided to go to a completely different route. But, I mean, I get what his message was, 9 teams were ahead of me and 9 teams passed. I mean, this isn't like Aaron Rodgers where he fell to 24, I think. But I kind of like the kid's confidence in himself. And I think he's gone of the top 10 of the guys who went in the top 10. I think he's got the best setup for success right now, because Arizona, defensively and offensively is a pretty decent team, and they're going to be able to build while he's only getting paid a rookie deal. Where I think Cleveland, I mean, I want to root for Cleveland, but goddamn, they feel like they shoot themselves in the foot every time. The Jets are a few years away, and Buffalo. Well, Josh Allen, like you said, has got McCarron either in front of him or he's got to compete with him. So I think Josh Rosen's in the best situation of the top 4 quarterbacks who went off the board. So we'll see.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, he's got still a decent team around him, and even some good talent. If he's going to start pretty soon in the league, he's got some good backups. As in Bradford, and so.
Yeah, and we got the second round has Cleveland, the Giants, Cleveland, Colts, and Colts. So Cleveland and the Colts are going to be under a microscope here in about, let's say it's Pacific time, a few hours here. I know this will record, or this will play on 12 Ounce Sports Radio afterwards, after this has already happened, but just... their needs right now, Cleveland, safety, maybe a wide receiver at this point.
I think Cleveland takes a safety with one of them for sure. I think wide receiver, they might wait for a 3rd round.
Yeah, I'm wondering if New York, the Giants, decide to go with a quarterback in this spot because the top 5 are gone. As far as the ones we've talked about, so now you're looking at Mason Rudolph, a Luke Falk kind of area here. There's the well's pretty thin after those 5. They could take a quarterback here if they found one they liked that they knew would get picked. Mason Rudolph is the only other one that was really considered potentially a first-round talent. Indianapolis will be an interesting. They got back-to-back picks. I think they got to get some weapons to both help Andrew Luck score and protect Andrew Luck and keep him upright. So that'll be my prediction as to where they go with those 2 picks, offensive line and wide receiver, or both offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be interesting. I mean, like you said, the draft was surprising in some spots, but at the same time, it kind of held up. I never actually checked my last prop bet. I'll have to do a count. What do you want? What do you expect the Lions to do here when the next few picks is? I know you're a Lions fan. You're going to be watching to see what they do. What are the needs for the Lions while I count this? My last prop bet.
The needs for them right now are mainly just linemen, like offensive and defensive linemen. I mean, they say tight end, but yeah, and running back, I guess. That's one of our top needs, I guess, is running back. Even though we have 3.
Oh, I lost my bet. Damn it. Sony Michel and Lamar Jackson getting those 2 last picks actually cost my bet. So that's all right, though.
Okay. Yeah, I think at the pick in the second round that we'll take inside linebacker.
That's not a bad pick. Sorry. Whew. I wanted to actually say, I forgot about this. I wanted to say it before, but I wanted to say kudos to Mike Hughes, cornerback from the University of Central Florida, the real national champions. Went number 30 to the Vikings, so I'm excited. Might have to get me a Mike Hughes jersey.
Yeah. No, I think he's going to be a decent fit for that team, too.
Yeah, I mean, pair him on the other side of Xavier Rhodes with a defense that's already pretty good. I mean, ain't nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think? I know we talked about this just a little bit, like the Saints, when they moved up to take Davenport. I mean, essentially, they view what they traded, they view Davenport ultimately as a top 5 player. I mean, they obviously, moved up to 14 from 27. They gave up a first-round pick next year. They gave up their first-round pick next year and the 147th pick in this draft. It seemed to me that guy, Davenport, could have been, there, maybe in the later or the early 20s, mid-20s, that they didn't have to send a first-round pick next year. Yeah,
it seemed like they gave up too much for moving up just a little bit almost.
Yeah, I mean, if it doesn't work out where they have a setback because they're going to be playing a first-place schedule next year and Drew Brees will be almost 40 years old. If it doesn't work out and, they're looking at a quarterback coming out next year because they didn't take any of the guys this year, they don't have a first-round pick next year. So it seemed to me that, they were mortgaging the future realistically on a guy who's 40, which, I mean, if you're the Patriots, we've seen that that's okay. Not saying that Drew Brees isn't bad, but Drew Brees may or may not be, the same guy at 40 that Tom Brady was at 40. So I don't know if I can justify sending a first-round pick. Whoever's, as far as the Packers, I think they got a steal on that one, and we're still able to get, the guy that they wanted when they traded back up, and picked up Jair Alexander. So So we'll have to.
Yeah, it was definitely a guy that they were definitely looking at, and they didn't give up too much for that. So.
So, anyways, well, we'll have to keep an eye on the second round and the rest of the draft, and we'll probably have a little bit more when we record Sunday night. So, I have to say that it was definitely from the last 72 hours of prospect talk and where everybody was going to slide, with the exception of Saquon Barkley, where everybody else went was not completely what I was expecting.
No, very surprised what first round brought to us, and expecting to see what is in rounds 2 and 3 today. So
cool. Well, we appreciate you listening to the episode of the Vegas Squares. You can catch us on all of our different avenues. Our podcasts are uploaded to our website at vegassquares.com. Also, you can catch us on the Forward Mile Podcast Network at forwardmile.com. Subscribe to their daily fantasy service and get access to our premium podcast. And also, every Tuesday and Saturday, we are on 12-ounce Sports Radio, 12ozsportsradio.com. And like I said, you can catch us every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern and Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern. We'll be on both of those times. So for Token Tony, catch him on Twitter at TokenTony89. You can get his picks. Also, I tweet out my daily picks at Vegas Squares on Twitter. We appreciate you listening in again, and we will catch you on the next episode.